Okay, so we are recording, Kelly. Hello, so we are just getting started in Facebook. So let's just get everything ready and set up. So we are live, Kelly. So welcome everybody. Welcome. Hello, hello, hello. We are here again, yet another video. We are doing a lot of videos. So let's just briefly introduce ourselves so we can get started with our important announcement today. So my name is Nanji Mateo. I'm the founder of InterpreMed. I am an NBCMI CCHI certified interpreter for the Spanish language. And I am a teacher, a trainer. And with us, we also have Kelly Enriquez.
Yes, so my name is Kelly. I am a certified medical interpreter through the NBCMI, CCHI. That's one of those things we recently did. And I am based in Richmond, Virginia. I am also an interpreter trainer and a content producer for InterpreMed.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Kelly. So, wow, we have yet another live stream, right? Like 2 announcements in 2 weeks. Like last week, we had the announcement for the Academy at InterpreMed. So we've been up to some big things behind the scenes. So we are super, super excited to tell you about our brand new program, the InterpreMed Ambassador Program. So Kelly, can you tell us what is the Ambassador Program?
So long story short, the Ambassador Program is our brand new initiative to connect our members with volunteer interpreting opportunities with charitable organizations serving the limited English proficient community. We get asked all the time by our members how they can volunteer with nonprofits to hone their skills and give back to the community. For folks interested in in-person volunteering opportunities, those tend to be pretty specific to the area that you're in. And we're sort of limited in how we can help you from the Dominican Republic and Richmond, Virginia, connect with those opportunities in your own community. However, because they're very specific to your area, however, the need for remote interpretation services has risen dramatically during the COVID-19 pandemic, and many nonprofits that once utilized in-person volunteer interpreters are picking up on this trend. This really opens up a world of opportunity when it comes to providing pro bono interpretation services remotely.
All right. Yes, that's a very good explanation, Kelly. And I'm just going to ask you, because I know that some interpreters may be thinking this, like, why should we provide interpretation services for free ourselves? Why do we volunteer at all?
Yeah, so first off, let's be real. Starting work as a professional medical interpreter can be really tough if you don't have experience. You've studied, you've gotten your training, heck, you maybe even have a degree in it, but all the places you're applying to require experience. How are you supposed to get a job to get experience if it requires you to have experience? It's kind of like a catch-22, right? So volunteering is actually how I started out, and I can say with a fair degree of certainty that I'm not alone in saying this. I interned with a local safety net clinic while I was completing my degree program in interpretation and translation. Then I volunteered with them and another nonprofit organization until I landed my first job as a bilingual patient advocate with one of our local safety net clinics. One of the ones I volunteered with, actually. So a lot of people don't know this, but free and charitable clinics often operate with very limited staff, relying heavily upon volunteer interpreters, receptionists, even volunteer providers. So yes, doctors volunteer with these nonprofits to provide free or low-cost healthcare to underserved communities. Many times they don't have the resources, financial or otherwise, to provide interpretation services. So it's not that they have the money and they're not paying the interpreters, it's just they don't have the money and they can't really afford to provide a lot of these services, including some of their providers are volunteer providers. Like I said, they may have some staff providers, but a lot of them are volunteers as well. So when it comes to interpretation services, this kind of puts these nonprofits in sort of a bind. We need interpreters who are willing to volunteer their time to help them.
Okay. Yes, that's a very good point, and that's a very good reason to volunteer. In my case, I also volunteer, and I usually volunteer for conferences. These conferences are run by nonprofits and NGOs, and I volunteer, for example, for Zoom simultaneous interpretation, and I help I feel very happy that I get to help people from, for example, women from the Amazon basin, LGBTQ asylum seekers, or even some social and civil groups like the Zapatistas from Mexico. And now my next, I'm constantly volunteering because I feel it's a great way to give back to all of these organizations that are really helping the community. So my next volunteering is going to be for a climate change conference with NGOs and nonprofits. So I believe that it's a great experience, and it's like Kelly mentioned, it's a good way of breaking that loophole of I'm trained, but I don't have experience, and I don't work because I don't have experience. It's like this endless loop. So you can break it with volunteering, I think, while helping the community who most need it at the same time.
Yeah, and so a big reason why I got into interpretation too is because I really wanted to help people. So I definitely share that sentiment that, you know, it's really great. It's really awesome to help people. And I love everything that you've been sharing with me, Nanji, about your volunteer experiences. I mean, we talk every day, and some of the things that you've interpreted for, I'm honestly really proud of you, that you've been interpreting for these things. So I don't know, it's a really enriching experience, not just for the people doing the volunteering, but also for the people who get to see you volunteering. I don't know. But you know, you're kind of like breaking into conference interpreting almost a little bit through volunteering. Oh my God, do you have a filter on?
Oh, I just blushed. So because you said you were
Okay.
proud of me.
Oh. Oh my goodness. But
Okay.
you know, fortunately, you're a trained professional certified interpreter. And as you can imagine, even though qualified interpreters such as yourself are what these nonprofits really need, demand and necessity often result in less than ideal candidates being utilized as interpreters.
Yes, exactly. And this takes me to my next point, Kelly, is that on InterpreMed, we have this huge community, and we see people practicing every day, and they are usually beginners, people who have received 40 hours training, and they actively looking for volunteering opportunities for the same reason, right? To help the community and to break that circle, that loop. And us, we see them, and I wish that I could help them in some way to volunteer. So if I just wish there was a way, right, to connect them with volunteer interpreting opportunities, right?
Yeah, if only there was some sort of program or something that could help these qualified interpreters find volunteer interpreting opportunities. So that's basically why we created the ambassador program, right? We have this opportunity, like, okay, let's take advantage of it. And volunteering is a fantastic way to get real life experience as a medical interpreter, like we mentioned. And through our live interpreting practice sessions, the InterpreMed team has the unique opportunity of seeing aspiring medical interpreters in action. And by InterpreMed team, I mean Nanji and I. We get to see a lot of interpreters in action, and we're really able to identify talented individuals who are prepared to put their skills to use in the field. So the ambassador program is our way of making, like I said, the most of this opportunity by connecting eligible members with volunteer interpreting opportunities with charitable organizations serving the limited English proficient community.
Right, so it's a win-win. So the volunteers win and the community wins. But you mentioned, there is a word that you mentioned, Kelly, that is eligible members. So not all InterpreMed members can participate?
That is true. So you remember how I said sometimes nonprofits utilize unqualified interpreters. I've seen it myself, and we all know the consequences of utilizing unqualified or ad hoc interpreters. So while we're a practice community for current and aspiring medical interpreters, we don't actually require you to have medical interpretation training or a certification to join. A lot of times we have members who join us who are interested in seeing what medical interpretation is like, but they haven't really completed their medical interpreting training of at least 40 hours. Maybe they're just looking into it. So while it's great that these folks really want to get started the right way, they're likely not prepared to interpret in the field. And let's face it, completing a 40-hour medical interpretation training course does not an interpreter make. there's a little bit of a gap there. So it's not unusual for us to have members who complete their training and then they come to practice with us and they ask us, do you think I'm ready to interpret for real live patients?
Yes, exactly. And I really like that our members are very, very self-aware, self-critical. They really they ask for feedback and they're usually very honest with themselves. So what we are trying to do is connecting qualified interpreters with nonprofits. So that's why with the ambassador program, we have created this screening process. We have nomination, screening, and training processes in place to not only ensure quality interpretation, but also to give interpreters that boost of confidence and assurance that they need to know that they are ready, that they can like take the leap and really actually interpret for patients, because it can be nerve wracking to have to go to a real appointment and then have the patient and the provider in there. So we are helping them with that. And Kelly, so can you tell us a little bit about that process that I mentioned, the nomination, screening, and training process?
Yeah, so we have this whole process lined up. We've really put a lot of thought into this, a lot of work into this. So this is kind of like going over first, we're going to go over the nomination process, because like I said, it's like this 3-step process. So first, nomination process, in order to be eligible for nomination into the ambassador program, you have to participate in our live practice sessions. So this really gives us an opportunity to kind of see like, okay, what are we working with here? Oh my goodness, I have so many great things to say about our live practice sessions, and they're peer led. So, I mean, everyone is interacting together, giving each other feedback, and people really get to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. Like I can go through a list of InterpreMed members and tell you, this person knocks it out the park with consecutive. This person is like a rock star at sight translation. This person is just, they are made for simultaneous interpretation, things like that. So what happens is when you practice with your same language peers, so same language peers, I'm a Spanish English interpreter. Obviously, I speak English, I'm sure you can tell. Nanji is also a Spanish interpreter. So if we were practicing together on InterpreMed, Nanji could nominate me, I could nominate Nanji. And once you get 2 nominations, this kind of alerts us, InterpreMed staff. So that's Nanji and I, fancy word for Nanji and I. It kind of lets us know like, okay, this person's received 2 nominations from their peers, 2 nominations from other members. We have a form on the website that members can submit to nominate another member. And that gives us the heads up, okay, we need to start watching this person. We need to kind of like see what they're about. We probably already have, but we're going to do this anyways. We're going to check up on you, see your skills in action. And then we decide, okay, is this person ready? And the fact that we're interpreter trainers, the fact that, you know, we're dual certified, Nanji, you have your experience as a QA with interpreting agencies. So we're very familiar with evaluating even folks who don't interpret the same languages as us. We are familiar with kind of assessing their interpreting skills. So using that information, we decide, okay, is this person fit for consideration into the ambassador program? And if we decide yes, then we move on to the next step. So the next step is eligibility. Are you eligible? We're going to do an eligibility screening. So the first thing that is a requirement right now is that the prospective ambassador, that's what we're calling the folks who are participating in the ambassador program, the prospective ambassador must be a US resident at this point in time. We'll get into this a little bit later. You must also have completed your medical interpretation training of at least 40 hours. So this is going to be very similar to the prerequisites as outlined by CCHI and NBCMI. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a medical interpreting training program specifically. Like for instance, in my case, I went through a degree program in interpretation and translation that focused both on legal and medical interpretation, and both CCHI and NBCMI accepted that. as my proof of medical interpreter education. So you just need to show us that you've completed your medical interpretation training. Lastly, you must have a Hipaa training certificate. So chances are you've probably already been through some Hipaa training as part of your medical interpretation training. However, we want to make sure that we're testing your knowledge on that you have a certificate that shows I took an assessment to pass, to make sure to prove my knowledge of Hipaa. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be working with some pretty private, sensitive healthcare information. So we need to make sure that you are kind of up to snuff in terms of respecting patient confidentiality and protected health information. And if you do not have a Hipaa training certificate, we have resources. We can kind of provide you with some guidance on getting one of those. They're relatively easy to obtain. And once we determine that you're eligible, you're a US resident, you've completed your medical interpretation training, you have your Hipaa training certificate, then we move on to the last bit, and that is ambassador training. So we are actually going to be providing for free 99. It's a joke. Naji didn't realize, did you really not realize that was a joke, or were you just pulling my leg? I think you were pulling my leg. I put free 99.
That's a good one. That's a first, Kelly. Okay.
Yeah, I used to work retail. It's bad. So yeah, free 99, free training for prospective ambassadors. So you decide you want to be a part of this program. You decide you want to volunteer. We're going to provide you some training. Okay. We want to make sure that you're going to be ready to fulfill your role. So as of right now, this is going to be provided via Zoom, and then I'm going to record it, and then those recordings will be available later for prospective ambassadors. But eventually I'm going to try and incorporate this into our online learning management system, meaning it's going to be kind of like a self-paced course, but that's a little bit further down the line. So your training will consist of these three things. First off, you're going to get an organization overview, an overview of the organization that you're going to be being a volunteer with. Now, as of right now, we only have one ambassador program partner, which we'll discuss in a moment. But as this program continues, we have the framework established, we have all the paperwork and everything ready, all fine-tuned. So as we add more organizations, who knows, maybe you'll be volunteering with 2 organizations. It's your choice. I want to make sure that you know about those organizations, how they work. Those are really important things to know about. Next up, we're going to go over medical interpreting codes of ethics and standards of practice, specifically how those apply to your volunteer role within the organization. So I can say from experience, being a volunteer medical interpreter in the past with multiple nonprofits, I found that this was one of the things that was most difficult for me to put into practice. So I'm going to be giving you some kind of like guidelines, just, okay, what does my role look like and how can I stay within my medical interpreter role as I am a volunteer with this organization or organizations. And lastly, as I mentioned, primarily opportunities we're going to be offering through the ambassador program will be remote interpretation opportunities. So you're going to be doing everything digitally, online, maybe through the phone, what have you, sending emails, things like that. So I want to make sure that we go through digital security basics for remote interpretation. I find that this is an area in which I've even seen interpreting agencies be woefully just not in the know about these things. So I'm going to go over, okay, how do we send a secure email? How do we protect electronic protected health information, things like that. So we're really going to go through some training here. And this will be a really invaluable asset to you as you begin your career as a medical interpreter, really. So this free training is not just our gift to you as a volunteer, but also a gift to these nonprofit organizations that, they really need volunteers and need quality volunteers. So with all that being said, I wanted to go ahead and announce our first and only at this point, program partner with the InterpreMed Ambassador Program, and that is Access Now. So, oh my goodness, I'm just so excited because I used to volunteer with Access Now, and it's an organization that's near and dear to my heart. It was one of the, like I said, oh my goodness, I can't even talk right because I'm just so excited. I actually ended up being their point of contact at the clinic I worked at. So I worked at a nonprofit clinic, a safety net clinic that also utilized their services. And I continued volunteering with them periodically over the years. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was interpreting for them both in person and over the phone. And I was also kind of like giving them the inside scoop a little bit, trying to help them out on the changing interpreting landscape because things were changing very quickly. But I'm sure y'all were wondering, okay, well, what does Access Now do? So Access Now isn't a safety net clinic. However, first off, so as not to mince words, I have a little blurb that they approved for me to use as the description of Access Now. So I'm going to go ahead and read that off to you. So Access Now is a program that has been providing access to specialty medical care to the uninsured in the greater Richmond, Virginia area since 2008. Specialty providers donate their services for patients referred through Access Now by area safety net clinics. Many of these patients speak a language other than English and are in need of medical interpretation services for their appointments. And as a result, Access Now provides opportunities for volunteer interpreters. So Access Now really does some great work. Oh my goodness, was the confetti going the whole time?
That's yes, fun. It was.
Oh my gosh, well, it's just because it's so exciting, right?
Yes.
So Access Now does some really amazing work. Basically, if you are someone in the greater Richmond area who does not have access to specialty care, you're going to one of these safety net clinics. A lot of people know these as free clinics. They might not necessarily be free, but low cost, sliding scale, things like that. If the clinic you're going to doesn't have a specialist available, you can go and be referred through Access Now, and providers will actually donate those appointments to Access Now. Access Now kind of serves as the kind of the connecting point. They're going to connect the dots, make sure to connect you with that specialty care. And Ananji and I were talking about this earlier, but I have interpreted for some really, my goodness, really impactful cases through Access Now, really formative experiences for me as an interpreter. And honestly, I can say with a fair degree of certainty that some of the patients I interpreted for would not have gotten the care that they got had it not been for Access Now. So like I said, special place in my heart. So we're very excited to share this ambassador program with our members. I just wanted to kind of open up the floor. Do we have any questions perhaps being asked on Facebook? Because I think we ended up choosing to do it on Facebook last minute, right? Because YouTube wanted to be difficult.
Yes, exactly. So we actually have a series of comments. We have kind of like a conversation going on here. So we have Alex Mendez with us and from California, and Roger from the Dominican Republic. So we have national and international audience. Gustavo is also here with us, and Gustavo shared that he actually offers Hipaa training. That's great. And actually, this just no questions, Kelly, but actually somebody in the chat, I think they're a little bit sad that is only for US interpreters. Sadly, this is not possible here in the Dominican Republic. So I have a question for you, Kelly. Why not non-US residents?
So I promise you, we thought about y'all. And it wasn't a passing thought. This has been something in the works for a minute. And by minute, I mean like months, meaning there's been a lot of discussion, planning, back and forth emails, you name it. So this was one of the aspects of this program. Like I said, we had a lot of back and forth on it, but at the end of the day, this program is in its infancy. It was literally just born now. And we're going to be constantly kind of revisiting it to kind of fine tune the process, which is why we want to test the waters first and not bite off more than we can chew. Once we work out the kinks, even the ones we haven't thought of yet, despite months of planning, we'll kind of revisit this, and we definitely have plans for our international members in the near future. We promise we haven't forgot about you. This is something we are actively going to be working on. So it's coming. we just started the program today. So I promise we're thinking about you.
Exactly. This is just a baby program for now, but once, it grows into a full-fledged adult, maybe we will consider that. And also, I have a question for you, Kelly, and the question hasn't been asked in the chat, but I know maybe some people may be asking this. So is not being an InterpreMed member a deal breaker? Like if you are not an InterpreMed member, then you cannot volunteer with Access Now through us?
So the ambassador program, what it's really all about is leveraging this sort of unique opportunity we've kind of serendipitously stumbled upon. We have this vibrant practice community of dedicated interpreters. So what we do with this practice community is we see you, our members, practicing real live interpreting scenarios, hours upon hours every week. So we all become intimately acquainted with each other's strengths, each other's weaknesses, kind of like you and I when we work together, Nanji. You really get to know where people's strengths and weaknesses are. And this puts us in a unique position to say, like, yes, you're ready, or no, you're not, but here's what you need to work on to be able to safely interpret for patients. So the COVID-19 pandemic has put a lot of these nonprofits in kind of a precarious position. Many of them are utilizing remote interpreters for the first time, having relied historically upon local in-person volunteer interpreters. So remote interpretation, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It removes geographic barriers and effectively increases their prospective volunteer pool, but at the same time, without quality control measures, this can result in a flood of unqualified interpreters, ultimately negatively affecting the LOP patients those nonprofits aim to serve. So we're leveraging our existing infrastructure to connect the dots. That's it. We're trying to do it in the most efficient and equitable way possible, so that way everyone wins.
Exactly. And I want to say on a personal note, Kelly, is that, for example, in InterpreMed, I know the names of all the members that go to the live meetings. I know where they are from. I know their background. I know how hard they work. I know that some of them failed the test, but they are still trying to get better. So they have this passion for interpretation. I can see the passion in them because I have interacted with them firsthand for months and months, and some of them for years. And now they are even my friends. Like you you met an InterpreMed member.
Yes, I did.
So
in this very office.
in that very office. So we are, thanks to that relationship that we have built with our community, we are in a position to say that somebody can, like you mentioned, safely interpret for a patient. So we are trying to make things easier for everybody, for Access Now, for patients, and for InterpreMed members, right? So everybody wins at the end through this process. So that's why we are doing it only with InterpreMed members. But at the end of the day, members can nominate, and it's on a case-by-case basis, right? So we consider a lot of different factors, and then we decide whether or not we vouch for you for Access Now. So this is the way that I think is a more productive, more positive way of seeing this, instead of thinking, oh, I have to be a member to become an to volunteer. No, it's just quality control. That's all. It's not nothing for profit or anything like that. We actually want to make sure that we are helping people the right way. So
yeah, very much so.
Yes. So I have some comments here in the chat. So Roger says, I know I have been a medical and legal interpreter for over 10 years, and I have to know it up and down. Oh, he's talking about the Hipaa. He says that he's going to, yes, he's going to study Hipaa, and he's been an interpreter for 10 years, and he's still studying Hipaa, right? Because
don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. Like, I think I recently like complained about this to you, how like, so I work with probably about like 20 different interpreting agencies, and every single one of them makes me take a different Hipaa training, and they make me retake it every year. So like I'm completing Hipaa trainings like constantly. And I'm like, can I send you the certificate from this other thing that I did? And they're like, no, it's not going to count. No, but it's the same info. It's not going to count. It's not going to count. So part of this process is kind of like, especially when we start really rolling out that learning management system where we're going to kind of streamline the training process. A lot of this is going to be like kind of like onboarding for an interpreting agency, but a little less annoying in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And I know you're very familiar with that, Nanji, because I mean,
Yes.
even though you do remote interpretation, you do onboard with different interpreting agencies. So
yes, I have to sign papers and I'm like, oh my God, the same papers again. It's just hard. But actually Gustavo let us know in the chat that he was going to share the details about his Hipaa training through a direct message to us. So that's
awesome. Cool.
Yes, that's very good. Thank you so much,
Definitely.
Gustavo. So let's see. I think that's pretty much everything that we had to say. And I think we have some sort of a special Q&A for members, right?
Yes, we definitely do. So InterpreMed members, if you go to the calendar, so if you go on the main website, you click on the link at the top that says calendar. I know our menu has changed a little bit. If you wanted to read more about the ambassador program, you can click on it's giving back, right?
Yes, giving back.
Yeah, I like that. This just makes me so happy. So we're going to be having a live Q&A either at the end of this week or sometime next week. There is a doodle poll linked. If you scroll down at the bottom of the calendar page, you will see TBD meetings, and it will say InterpreMed Ambassador Program Q&A. And from there, there is a link to our doodle poll. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Doodle yet, it is a platform to be able to kind of pick a date and time that works best for as many people as possible. So you can express your availability there. And there's also a link to a Google form. So in that Google form, you can submit your questions ahead of time. And what that will do for me will kind of enable me to prepare a little bit better. So if I see everyone is asking the same questions, I will make sure to really drive those points home. But of course, you can always ask questions during the live Q&A as well. And that will be for InterpreMed members only.
Okay, very well. That's it. I think that was pretty much it for today. That's what we wanted to share. And we had an interesting conversation in the chat. If you have any other questions, please let us know. Let's just give them like 2 minutes or so, because sometimes there is a lag between the chat and the live stream. So let's just give them a couple of minutes. And while we are waiting, Kelly and we are really looking forward to partnering with other charity organizations that help interpreters. And I think it's just, it just makes sense to, take advantage of what we have here and give back to the community. So partnering with other charity or charitable organizations will be great. So if you know any, let us know in the comments as well, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's just kind of like, we talk about privilege, right? And so one of the things that, oh my goodness, Nadia, can you believe I've been with InterpreMed for like a year now?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's such a privilege to be a part of the InterpreMed team and being able to connect with all these interpreters, getting to know all these people. And so really what the ambassador program is about is just leveraging that opportunity, that connection that we have. And it's almost like when you utilize your privilege, right? Like me as a non-native Spanish speaker, as an American, being able to utilize my privilege to be able to help other folks. It's just kind of like that with InterpreMed. I'm able to leverage this opportunity that we have, leverage that privilege that we have to be able to help more people. So that's just what it's all about.
Yes, exactly. It's all about helping others. So I think that was all. We don't have any more comments in the chat. So I'll keep an eye on the InterpreMed messages for Gustavo. And if you have any other questions, you can always share your question in the comment section. We actually read the comment section after the live stream is over. And we are also going to upload this to YouTube. So make sure to follow us in YouTube. We have nearly 1,000 followers in Facebook, and we want to reach that number in YouTube. So please follow us. It's just InterpreMed, our name, InterpreMed. And remember that our website is interpremed.com, where you can get a description of the program, of the ambassador program as well, if you need that in written form.
Mhm.
So I think that's pretty much that's all from my part, Kelly.
That's all, folks.
That's all, folks. Okay, so I'm going to end the live stream. So goodbye, everybody. Bye. Thank you.